The morning Kaeli disappeared didn't feel significant. Not at the time. Later, it became impossible to stop replaying it. Every sound, every smell, every small, ordinary thing that should have meant nothing. There were no warning signs. No sense of finality curling in the stomach. No instincts telling anyone to hold on tighter. Just a kitchen that smelled like fruit juice and burnt toast. Lior noticed it too late. Again. The toaster popped, far too loud for the quiet apartment. And smoke followed immediately. Thin at first, then thicker. It was the kind of mistake that happened often enough to be forgettable. Shit, Lior muttered. He yanked the toast out with his fingers despite the heat. One slice was blackened beyond saving. The other might have been edible if someone was willing to lie to themselves. From the hallway, Kaeli laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just that soft, breathy laugh she always made when her brother did something predictably stupid. Like burning breakfast, forgetting the time, or her trying too hard to keep everything together. You did it again, she teased, padding into the kitchen in mismatched socks. One had stars, the other didn't match anything at all. That's like 3 times this week. Lior squinted at the toast like it had personally betrayed him. It was fine 30 seconds ago, he huffed, eyeing the burnt edges. You always say that, Kaeli giggled. He sighed, already defeated, and scraped the worst of the burn into the trash. You want cereal? Kaeli nodded immediately. She always did. It never mattered how many times he offered eggs or toast or anything warm. Cereal meant milk, crunch, control. She could pour it herself without Lior burning anything. She climbed onto the chair, knees tucked up, watching him with that sharp little gaze kids get when they've learned someone well enough to notice the cracks. You didn't sleep, she said. It wasn't a question. Lior paused, milk carton in hand. I slept, he replied, trying to brush it off. Kaeli raised an eyebrow, an exact copy of his. She'd practiced it in the mirror more than once. Then why are you walking like a zombie? He laughed quietly, even though that sounded tired. Go eat, he said instead of answering. Later, that moment hurt the most. Not because of what was said, but because of how normal it sounded. The apartment was small, but it was theirs. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a couch that had definitely come from the curb and smelled faintly like old detergent, no matter how many times Lior cleaned it. The hallway light flickered if you didn't hit the switch just right. Kaeli had named it. The blinker, she called it. Like it was a pet or a monster or maybe both. Lior hated it. Don't touch it, he'd call automatically. And she always would hop down from her chair and dart towards the hallway anyway. I didn't, she'd yelled back, already gone. He would pause every time listening for the flicker. Sometimes it behaved. Sometimes it didn't. That morning, it flickered once and went still. They ate breakfast together most mornings. Not because they had to, but because Lior insisted. If he was going to be tired, he wanted to be tired with her. Sitting across the table, making sure she ate, making sure she laughed, making sure the world stayed normal for a few minutes longer. Kaeli crunched her cereal and watched the rain slide down the window. "It's gonna storm tonight," she said. Lior frowned. "How do you know?" She shrugged. "It feels like one." He didn't like that answer. He preferred forecasts, numbers, things that could be measured and prepared for. But he didn't argue. "Can I sleep in your room if it's loud?" she asked. "Of course," he said immediately. "You don't have to ask." She smiled into her bowl. Later, people would remember that smile. Or at least try to. When Lior pulled on his jacket, Kaeli hovered near the door, backpack already on. "Don't forget your keys," she said. He checked his pocket. "I've got them." Check again. He checked again, then held them up like proof. "Phone?" He tapped his jacket. "Yep." "Wallet?" "Kaeli," Lior said, soft and patient, not angry, just tired. "What?" she said innocently. "You forget stuff." He laughed and crouched so they were eye to eye. "You're 10. You're not my mom." She leaned in close, whispering dramatically. "Someone has to be." That's when the hallway light flickered. Just once. Lior's smile faltered. "Hey," he said gently. "What did I say about the blinker?" "I didn't touch it," she protested. "I swear." He believed her. That belief would matter later, more than he ever wanted it to. He walked her to school like always. Rain misted the sidewalks, the city dull and gray and unremarkable. Kaeli kicked at puddles. Lior told her to watch her step. She didn't. At the corner, she hugged him tight, arms around his waist, face pressed into his jacket. "You're working late?" she asked. "Not too late," he promised. "Promise, promise?" She held out her pinky. "Promise, promise." He sealed it. She pulled back, suddenly serious. "If you forget, I'll be mad." He smiled. "I know." She ran off without looking back. He watched her until she turned the corner. Later, that became a habit too. That night, the burnt toast still sat in the trash. The cereal bowl still waited in the sink. The hallway light flickered again. They'd never found signs of forced entry. No broken locks. No shattered glass. No splintered door frames. That was the first thing the report noted. It wouldn't be the last thing that failed to explain what happened. By the time Kaeli got home from school, the rain had settled into something heavier. Not loud yet, persistent. The kind that soaked through sidewalks and clothes and moods alike. She kicked her shoes off by the door like always, backpack thumping against the wall before sliding to the floor. The apartment greeted her with familiar quiet. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock over the sink, the faint rattle of rain against the windows. Lior wasn't home yet. That wasn't unusual. He was late sometimes. Later than he meant to be. Later than he promised. Kaeli told herself that as she washed her hands, humming under her breath. A tuneless little thing she made up on the spot just to fill the silence. The hallway light flickered as she passed it. Once. She stopped, stared. "Don't be dumb," she muttered, copying the tone without realizing it. The light steadied. She moved to her routine like she always did. Homework first, even though she hated it. Snack after. Apple slices. Because Lior said chips don't count as a dinner. TV on low in the background. More noise than anything she watched. Every few minutes, she checked the door. Not because she was worried. Because she was waiting. The storm worsened as evening crept in. Rain turned sharp against the windows, wind pushing hard enough to rattle the glass. Somewhere outside, something metal clanged loose and banged over and over, like you couldn't decide whether to fall off or hold on. Kaeli didn't like storms. She tolerated them, mostly. But once it got dark, the sounds changed. Everything stretched, echoed, felt closer than it should. She turned on more lights. Kitchen, living room, her bedroom. The hallway light flickered again. This time, it didn't stop right away. Kaeli frowned at it. "Blinker," she said quietly. "Knock it off." The light steadied. She changed into pajamas early. She pulled her blanket onto the couch and curled under it, knees tucked in, TV murmuring softly to itself. Her phone sat beside her, screen dark. Lior still hadn't texted. She picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. Finally, she sent a message. "You coming home soon?" It stayed unread. Kaeli swallowed and told herself not to be dramatic. He'd promised. He'd always come home. Still, she turned the TV volume down, straining to hear over the storm. That's when she heard footsteps in the hallway outside the apartment. She froze. Not because footsteps were strange. People came and went all the time. But because these were slow and deliberate. They stopped right outside the door. Kaeli held her breath. A moment passed. And then... "Kaeli?" Her heart slammed against her ribs. Lior's voice. It was soft and familiar, tired in the specific way it always sounded at the end of a long day. She was off the couch before she realized she moved. Bare feet padded across the floor as she reached the door, fingers curling around the edge of it. Something tightened in her chest, a small feeling she didn't have a name for. "Lior?" she called back. "Yeah," he answered immediately. Almost too immediately. "I'm home," she frowned. "You were late." "I know, I'm sorry." That was right too. Exactly right. Her hand hovered over the lock. Then she hesitated. You forgot your keys again? He paused. Just a fraction too long. Yeah, he said. Can you open the door for me? Thunder cracked hard enough to rattle the windows. Kaeli glanced down the hallway. The blinker flickered once. Her fingers tightened on the handle. You had your keys when we left this morning, she said quietly. Another pause. Longer this time. I must have left them at work, Lior said. It's raining. Please, Kaeli. Kaeli glanced down the hallway. The blinker flicked once. Her fingers tightened on the handle. You had your keys when you left this morning, she said quietly. Another pause. Longer this time. I must have left them at work, Lior said. It's raining. Please, Kaeli. He said her name the way he always did when he was tired. Soft and careful. Her chest ached. She reached for the lock and stopped. Because Lior always knocked. Always. Even when he had his keys. Even when he was annoyed or in a hurry or half asleep on his feet. Why aren't you knocking? She asked. The hallway went still. Then, a breath drawn too deep. Kaeli, the voice said again. This time, something in it bent wrong. Just slightly. Open the door. Its tone sharpened. Behind her, the hallway light flickered hard, on, off, on, throwing long, broken shadows across the wall. Kaeli backed away from the door, her heart hammered. I'm gonna call you, she said, voice shaking. Okay? I'm gonna call you. Silence, and the voice softened. Don't. Her phone buzzed. A text message. From Lior. Almost there. Storm's bad. She stared at the screen, then at the door, then back at the screen. The voice outside spoke again, gentler now, almost pleading. Kaeli, I'm right here. The door opened. Not all at once. Just enough for the hallway light to spill across the floor in a thin, pale strip. Kaeli didn't see a monster. Not right away. She saw her brother standing there, shoulders slumped, hair damp like he'd been caught in the rain. His jacket hung open in a way it always did when he forgot to zip it. His hands were empty, but he smiled at her. Relief rushed through her so fast it almost hurt. I told you, he said gently. I'm home. Something moved in his shadow. The hallway light flickered again, hard, stretching the shape behind him until it brushed the ceiling, bending where it shouldn't, thinning where it should have been solid. Kaeli's breath caught. She took a step back. The thing wearing her brother's face stepped forward. Lior was already running. His boots hit the stairwell, 2 at a time, lungs burning, heart hammering so hard it drowned out the storm. He'd seen the apartment door open from the end of the hall. Seen the lights spill out. Seen something move where Kaeli should have been. Kaeli, he shouted. The words tore out of him, raw. The hallway answered with silence. Then a sound. Not a scream. Something wetter, shorter, cut off too quickly. Lior hit the door just as it slammed shut, the lock clicking. "Kaeli!" He slammed his shoulder into it. "Kaeli, open the door!" No answer. He fumbled for his keys, hands shaking too badly to work. The hallway light burst overhead, glass raining down, and everything plunged into darkness. And in that darkness, a breath behind him. Drawn too deep. He turned. The thing was already there. Tall, wrong, folded in a shape that tried poorly to be human. Its limbs bent at angles Lior's mind refused to follow. Its face. No. He wouldn't remember the face. He refused to. It took a step towards him. Lior's fire reacted before he did. Heat roared through the hallways, flames surging wild and uncontrolled. The building groaned, smoke crawled up the walls. The creature recoiled, not in pain, but in surprise, as if it hadn't expected resistance. That moment was enough. Lior ran. He didn't stop to think. Didn't look back. He tore down the stairs and out into the storm, rain plastering his hair to his face, breath coming out in ragged gasps. Behind him, something laughed. Not loud, not mocking, just familiar enough to hurt. "Lior," it called, in his own voice. He didn't answer. He didn't stop running. By the time emergency services arrived, the apartment was empty. No sign of Kaeli, no blood, no forced entry. Only scorch marks along the hallway walls and a front door hanging slightly ajar, swaying in the wind. Neighbors gave conflicting stories. Some said they heard a child crying. Some said they heard a man shouting her name. One claimed they heard two voices arguing in the hallway, both identical. The report noted all of it. It explained none of it. Lior was found hours later, collapsed 3 blocks away, rain-soaked and shaking. Burn marks clawed up his arms like they'd been clawed into place. He kept asking the same question, over and over. Did she open the door? No one answered him. His tapes went quiet after that night. After the pleading, after the bargaining offer to anything listening. Some said he stopped because there was nothing left to say. Some said the building was dead by then. No point recording to an empty sector. In the weeks that followed, the building emptied out. People left in pieces. A door left ajar and never closed again. A hallway light switched off and never replaced. A name scratched out from the tenant list taped near the stairwell. The guards passed through twice. They marked doors, burned records, took what they wanted and left the rest to rot. Lior stayed. Because the room still smelled like her. Because her drawings still clung to the walls. Because the blinker still flickered if you hit the switch wrong. Because Greybun belonged on her bed. The Wendigo didn't return right away. That was the worst part. It lingered at edges instead, in sounds that didn't match shadows, in voices through walls that should have been empty. Sometimes it sounded like Kaeli. Sometimes it sounded like Lior. Sometimes it didn't bother pretending. Each time Lior recorded again, the tapes grew stranger. Then they stopped entirely. An order eventually went out. It didn't come labeled as an execution. The Baron called it a containment operation, a failed variant, a creation that had exceeded its purpose. He sent the ghost unit. Officially, they were meant to eliminate the creature. Unofficially, the Baron already knew the ghost unit had stopped obeying him. They asked questions, made contact with outside cells, disappeared from command channels for minutes at a time, then longer. They were becoming a liability. The Wendigo wasn't just bait. It was a solution. The unit entered Sector 14 under blackout conditions. Comms interference, weather instability, urban collapse, standard risks. They didn't expect the creature to hunt them back. By the second night, they were separated. By the third, Felix and Yan were moving blind, cut off from the others, chasing through buildings that should have been empty but weren't. The Wendigo learned fast. It stopped mimicking civilians, stopped using children's voices. It started using theirs. Felix heard his own laugh echo from the stairwell he hadn't entered. Yan heard command orders whispering through dead radios. And beneath it all, another voice. It was familiar and weak and breaking. Lior didn't hear it coming when the Wendigo returned. It didn't knock this time. It didn't pretend to be him. It came through walls, through rails, through places fire couldn't reach. By the time Felix and Yan found him, the apartment was flooded up to the 4th floor. Lior was barely conscious. The mark had spread, dark and crawling, reacting to the creature's presence like it had been waiting. The Wendigo was still there. It was watching and learning. It took both of them to drive it back, fire and explosives tearing through the floor. The creature retreated, not defeated, but satisfied. As if this had always been the point. They dragged Lior up the stairwell, across rooftops slick with rain and ash, barricading themselves behind rusted doors while Yan tried to force a signal through dead comms. Felix kept pressure on wounds that shouldn't exist. The storm didn't stop. The city didn't answer. And somewhere below them, the Wendigo waited. The dream that pulled Lior into a realm he didn't understand did not end gently. While his body fought to survive, his mind fought harder. Even on the rooftops, he never settled the way unconscious bodies should. His breathing stayed uneven, shallow, then too deep, then stopped long enough for Yan to swear and check again. The storm had passed hours ago. The rooftop was quiet. But something inside Lior kept moving. Yan would later say it felt like standing near a grave that hadn't decided what it wanted to keep. The mark was wrong. It didn't bleed. It wasn't infected. It didn't behave like a wound. It spread in thin, branching lines beneath the skin, darkening when Lior's heart raced, fading when he went still. Every time Felix leaned close, the air around it felt heavier, like pressure before a storm, like something holding its breath. Lior whispered in his sleep, not words, names. Sometimes Kaeli's, sometimes Greybun, sometimes his own. He didn't wake the first night, or the second. By the third morning, the city below had shifted again. Patrol routes changing, guards moving through the sector, drones circling and drifting away. No one came up to the rooftops. Felix rationed water. Yan worked comms until her fingers shook. And the mark continued to grow. Not outward, inward. When Lior finally woke, it wasn't sudden. His breathing changed first. Slow, deepening. Like someone easing back into a body they weren't sure still belonged to them. Then his fingers switched. Felix was there instantly. "Hey," he said quietly, crouching beside him. "Easy, don't move." Lior's eyes opened. For a moment, they didn't focus on anything at all. Then they found Felix. "You're real," Lior whispered. Felix swallowed. "Last I checked." Felix swallowed. "Last I checked." Lior's gaze drifted past him, unfocused. "The trees are gone." "The trees are gone." Yan leaned in from the other side. "You're on a roof. You're safe. As safe as we can manage." Lior tried to nod, winced instead. His hand drifted towards his side, towards the mark. Yan caught his wrist gently, but firm. "Don't." Lior's breath hitched. "It's still there," he said, not asking. Felix nodded. "Yeah." Silence stretched between them. Then Lior whispered, "It's quiet." Both of them froze. "Quiet how?" Felix asked. Lior stared up at the pale sky, empty, wrong in its own way. Like something stopped knocking. Neither Felix nor Yan asked about his dream. Whatever had spoken to him, whatever had answered, hadn't gone away. It had only stepped back, waiting. By the next morning, the mark reacted first. Not with pain, with recognition. Lior went rigid as pressure yanked downward through his chest, through the rooftops, through layers of concrete and earth, as if distance had stopped meaning anything at all. Felix shouted his name. Yan grabbed his shoulders. But Lior wasn't there anymore. He was staring into an alley below where the floodwaters had finally receded. The ground trembled once, then again. Felix backed up, swearing, as the concrete split with a sound like something exhaling after being held too long. The crack widened. Something pale pushed through. Bone. Small and fragile. A child's hand, too thin. Fingers clicking softly as they scraped against stone. Then an arm, joints bending the wrong way as it dragged itself upward. Ribs followed, a narrow spine arching as the rest struggled free. Yan went cold. Felix couldn't breathe. Lior made a broken sound low in his throat. The skeleton paused halfway out, shuddering, uncertain whether it was allowed to exist. Then another hand moved through the rain. It was human. It reached down and closed gently around the skeletal wrist, not gripping, not forcing, just holding. A soft, red mist snaked from the newcomer's palm, curling around the bones. Easy, someone murmured. The voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The bones responded. As the hand pulled, the impossible began. Where skin met bone, flesh followed. Not all at once or cleanly. Muscle knitted in thin strands. Veins bloomed beneath translucent skin. Colors seeped back in uneven patches. Too pale, too gray at first, like paint soaking into paper that didn't want to hold it. Ribs softened, spine straightened. The skull tilted as empty sockets filled. Eyes came last, unfocused, cloudy, then slowly clearing as breath shuddered into new lungs. The small figure coughed, hard. Rain picked up again, splashing against a little girl's face as she collapsed forward into the alley, shaking violently. Her body catching up to the fact it was alive. The skeleton was gone. The girl remained. The one who had pulled her free dropped to their knees, shrugging off a jacket and wrapping it around her with hands that trembled despite how steady they tried to be. "I've got you," they whispered, not to anyone else, only to her. "You're okay. You're here." The girl clutched the fabric, weak, teeth chattering, eyes unfocused. "Leo," she whispered. That's when Lior broke. He didn't remember getting down the fire escape. Didn't remember hitting the ground. He only remembered dropping beside her, hands hovering uselessly over her shoulders, afraid to touch and desperate to all at once. "Kaeli," he sobbed. "Oh gods, Kaeli." She turned her head slowly, blinking up at him. "You came home," she murmured. His hand shook as he pulled her close, jacket and all, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'm here," he choked. "I'm here." Felix and Yan arrived seconds later. Neither spoke. Neither moved closer. Their attention wasn't on the girl. It was on the other one. A boy. Because that's what he was, really. Rose to his feet, rain plastering dark hair into his face. His eyes were wide, stunned like he hadn't processed what his hands had just done. His breathing hitched. His hands were stained dark, not with blood, but with something older. He stared at the three of them like he expected the world to reject him. But it didn't. Lior looked up. Their eyes met. The mark on Lior's side flared, then slowly faded, retreating like it had been called back. "You shouldn't have been able to do that," Lior rasped. The boy swallowed. He stopped. Tried again. "I didn't know if it would work." Felix's jaw tightened. "That was your first time?" he asked quietly. The boy nodded once. Silence pressed in around them. Rain filled it. Kaeli shifted weakly in Lior's arms, fingers tightening in the jacket that wasn't hers. The boy noticed. "You keep it," he said quickly. "It's fine." And then he stepped back. Just one step. Like he was afraid of being too close. Lior surged to his feet. "Wait." The words tore out of him raw. "What's your name?" The boy paused, rain sliding down his face like tears he didn't realize he was shedding. "Caleb," he said. For a long moment, nobody moved. The alley felt too small for what had just happened. Jan's hand hovered near her sidearm, not because she thought the boy was a threat, but because her instincts didn't know what else to do with miracles. Felix stood between Kaeli and the streets without realizing it, shoulders square like he could walk the world if it came back for her. The boy, Caleb, didn't run. He didn't announce himself. He just looked at Kaeli like he was checking that she stayed real. Kaeli blinked slowly, then tightened her grip, as if letting go might make her fall apart again. "Cold," she mumbled. Caleb flinched at the word. like it hit somewhere deeper than skin. He crouched again, carefully, keeping his hands visible, keeping his movements small. Not like someone trying to win trust, like someone afraid of breaking something already cracked. "It'll pass," he said quietly. "You're back." Kaeli stared at him a second, eyes heavy with exhaustion, then leaned, just slightly, towards him. Lior's throat closed. The jealousy that flashed through him was ugly and immediate, and drowned instantly by a relief so sharp it made him sick. Yan's radio crackled, not cleanly, more like someone dragging a signal through mud. Yan snapped her head up, thumb slamming the switch. "The ghost unit," a voice stuttered through. "Felix, Yan, report." Yan's breath caught. She pressed the mic hard enough her knuckles went white. "Command, this is Yan. We're alive. Repeat, we're alive. We have civilian assets with us." Static, then a whine, then Yan, a familiar voice, strained but controlled. Status. The alley didn't feel as cold anymore. Felix exhaled like he had been holding his lungs shut for days. "Red," Felix said, voice breaking on the name. He covered it with a cough. "We're pinned, but we're up. We fought the target. It marked the civilian. We extracted him." A pause filled with interference, then quieter and harder. "Hall?" Felix's eyes flicked to Yan. Yan didn't answer right away. Her gaze went distant, as if she could still see that corridor, that shadow, that moment they'd lost sight of him. "No confirmation," she said finally. "We got separated. No visual." Another pause. The radio hissed. "Copy," Brett said. "Hold position. Do not move the civilian through the streets. Repeat, do not move." Yan swallowed. "Understood." Brett's voice lowered, edged with something that didn't belong to an open channel. "And Yan?" "Yeah?" "If anyone else shows up, anyone not in our unit or civilians, do not engage. Avoid." Yan glanced at Caleb, then at Kaeli clinging to the borrowed warmth. "Copy," she said. Felix shifted his weight. "We need to get them out of here." Yan nodded. "Roof. Same route. Quick and quiet." Lior tightened his arms around Kaeli, standing on shaking legs. "She can't climb," he rasped. "Not like this." Caleb's head tilted. For the first time, he looked tired. Not physically. Not in the way exhaustion sits under the eyes. Tired like someone carrying something that didn't belong to him. He stepped closer, gaze flickering over Kaeli, then the mark on Lior's side. The mark had retreated and vanished, but he was sure it only lay dormant, like a bruise under the skin. Caleb didn't touch it. He didn't even reach for it. He only watched it the way you watch a door you know isn't fully locked. Then he looked up at Lior. "Keep her away from rails," Caleb said quietly. Lior blinked. "What?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Metal, howl places, long hallways." Yan went still. "You know what it is." Caleb didn't answer. Instead, he leaned down and spoke to Kaeli, soft enough that the words didn't feel meant for anyone else. "Stay close," he murmured. Don't answer voices. Kaeli's lashes fluttered. Okay, she whispered. That single word, small and trusting, made Felix look away. They moved. Not fast, just careful. Like the alley itself might change its mind. Yan took point, scanning rooftops and corners. Felix stayed close to Lior, hand hovering near Kaeli's back in case her legs gave out. Lior held her like he couldn't trust gravity. And Caleb walked with them. Not beside the unit, not behind them either. Always a half step off, like he didn't want to be counted. Like he was used to leaving before anyone could decide what to call him. When they reached the fire escape, Kaeli faltered, trembling. Lior tightened his grip. Before Felix could step in, Caleb reached out, slowly, and steadied her elbow with 2 fingers. Kaeli relaxed a fraction, like her body remembered that hand pulling her up. Lior watched it happen. He didn't like what he felt. It wasn't anger or gratitude. It was something he thought was worse. It felt like hope, with teeth. When they finally reached the roof again, the wind hit them hard and clean. Yan slammed the door shut and jammed a rusted bar through the handles. Felix guided Lior down, then crouched in front of Kaeli, checking her breathing again like he couldn't accept reality until it repeated itself. Kaeli blinked up at the sky. Pretty, she whispered, like she was seeing it for the first time. Felix swallowed hard. Yan raised her radio again. Command, we're topside. We have the missing girl. Static, then Rhett. Copy. Stay there. We're routing the others back to you. Yan's voice tightened. Others? A pause. Then he continued. Hal. Hal checked in 10 minutes ago, Rhett said. He's alive. Felix's knees almost gave out. Yan shut her eyes for a second, only one, like a prayer. Then she opened them again. Understood, she said. We hold. Only after the door was barred, only after the radio was confirmed, only after Kaeli was wrapped in blankets and water was pressed to her lips, only then did Lior look up again. Caleb stood at the edge of the roof, rain misting his hair, watching the skyline. He glanced back once, not at Felix or Yan, at Lior. Their eyes met again. Lior opened his mouth. 100 questions rose up like smoke. Caleb didn't wait for them. He only said, very quietly, Don't tell anyone what you saw. Then he turned his gaze back to the city. Kaeli slept through the night in Lior's arms, alive and warm, breathing softly against him. Lior didn't sleep at all. Because now he knew death could be undone by a boy who could reach into the ground, take his sister's hand, and pull her back into the world. Thank you so much for listening, truly. The story ends here. Lior's world doesn't, but the season does. We still have some loose ends, but those answers belong in the next season. I've still got plenty more stories to share, and every listen, like, comment, or subscription helps. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, And take care, everyone.
My little star, stay strong, stay safe, wherever you are. See your dreams and gentle air. Sleep now, sleep now, little one there. Honey lights, my heart, don't cry. Close your eyes beneath the sky. The wave is singing, the wind is near. Close your eyes, little flower bright. Lior will hold you, don't have fear.